Hi, this is Ben, that guy with the French accent, and I'm coming to you today to talk about The Lord of the Rings. The reason I want to make this video is because there's been a lot of talk around the Rings of Power and the Legendarium of JRR Tolkien. And I've been very vocal about my dislike of the Rings of Power and what Amazon has done with it. This has led to all sorts of conversations, some good, some not so good, and a lot of criticism. But I want to clarify some things and basically explain why I feel the way I do. So one thing that I will say is that if you like the Rings of Power and you've been watching the show and enjoyed it, I have no problem with you whatsoever. You should feel entitled to like what you like, enjoy what you enjoy, and you owe no explanation to me or anyone else about it. Now, that doesn't mean that I can't criticize the show and that I can criticize its audience, collectively speaking, and the what I see in the zeitgeist, the cultural zeitgeist around it. So don't take it personally, but I might talk about the general impact or value that the show might have in the culture in general. I've also been told that The Lord of the Rings is not culture. I don't know really what to answer to this, because this is one of the novels the most read in the world and most translated in so many languages. We lost track. It's made a huge impact on the field of fantasy. If only on the topic of fiction writing, because it broke basically all the rules of fiction writing that you could think of. The place of the Lord of the Rings in the general culture of the West is undeniable in my mind. So that's what I think about this. Now, I first read The Lord of the Rings when I was 12 years old. I think it's important to note that I was introduced to Dungeons and Dragons and fantasy gaming before I read The Lord of the Rings. Because that might explain why I'm not identifying the Legendarium of JRR Tolkien with Dungeons and Dragons, or one as a replacement for the other. For me, these are two very distinct worlds and fantasies with completely different purposes. It might also explain why I argue sometimes that JRR Tolkien is not the main influence on Dungeons and Dragons as a game, and that many other authors have had an impact, and that the participation of Tolkien as an influence over Dungeons and Dragons is somewhat minimal, actually, compared to people like Jack Vance, Paul Anderson, Robert E. Howard, Fritz Leiber, and others. So I was 12 years old when I read the Lord of the Rings. It's actually gaming that led me to the Lord of the Rings. The first time I tried to read it, now I was coming from reading prior. I had read some Robert E. Howard, and I read some Michael Moorcock. I had read Elric of Melniboné, and I had read Dorian Hawkmoon, the Tragic Millennium. So when I came to the Lord of the Rings, the first chapter about the Shire took me completely by surprise, and I did not know what I was getting into, and that bored me to death. I didn't know what I was reading, so I dropped reading the Lord of the Rings. In the first first or second chapter. Then I picked it up again a few weeks later, started from the beginning, and I think I reached the house of Tom Bombadil this time around, and which again took me completely by surprise. he completely cut the narrative from the Barrow Wights and was starting to pick up from the adventure of the hobbits on their way to Rivendell. And I was like, what the hell am I reading? And again, that stopped me dead in my tracks, and I dropped the book for a few weeks. Out of a complete, I remember to this day the moment I was looking at my shelf of books as a kid and saw again The Lord of the Rings and thought, gee, I have these books because I had the French edition in 6 volumes, which is still there, which is right next to me here. And I was like, it's a shame I have all these books and I'm not reading them. So I started reading The Lord of the Rings. Again. This time I forced myself. It took me a week, well, a little less than a week maybe. But I read until the chapter of the Council of Elrond. And the whole Bree chapter was nice. Strider was an interesting character, and I didn't know what that was going at all at the time. And I remember genuinely wondering, is he a bad guy? Is he a good guy? During my first read. And I thought that was very interesting. That kept me going. Once Glorfindel shows up, I was like, that's interesting. And the whole fight at the Brennan, that got me interested even more. Now, the Council of Elrond is really where my mind was blown. During the Council of Elrond, if you remember, this is when the actual story of Sauron, the Ring, the larger story of Middle-earth is unveiled. And then comes the question of what to do with the ring. And I remember clearly that when the council was considering dropping, we can destroy it. We can drop it in the ocean because the earth might change again, which implied that it had changed before. And I remember that was blowing my mind. And I was like, this is so cool. This is so smart. And that from that point on, I just couldn't stop reading. And from there, I think it took 3 days for me to read the entire Lord of the Rings. Now, I read like pretty much 24/7. I didn't sleep for 3 days. And I read the entire thing. I devoured it. And my mind was absolutely blown. Some passages were really tiresome. I remember that I really didn't connect with the journeys of Frodo and Sam alone at first. I think that I wasn't mature enough. I think that you need to have a certain level of maturity to understand what this is really about, which is the ability to go on, the forever march, the growing despair towards the goal, and you don't know if you can even succeed at it. The whole dynamic with Gollum, I found semi-interesting, but the same way, to understand the character of Gollum, I mean, I suppose that for some children, he's an entertaining character, especially if you read the book and make voices for him. But to me, as a young teenager, I was not connecting, especially with that part of the story, which I connect with much more now as an adult. Now, the part that got me going really was book 3, when Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli chase the traces of Merry and Pippin taken to Orthanc. That was the pace, the studying the clues to try to find out what happened to them. That fascinated me. I love that part. And from there, the reunion with Gandalf the White, the going to Gondor, Minas Tirith. That's I had never read something like this. Whoa, that got me. It I'm still emotional about it to this day. This is wow. So to me, the Lord of the Rings represents a perfect realization of a personal project of a man, J.R.R. Tolkien. He had the vision for what he was creating, and he created the vision and implemented it the way he wanted it to be done and implemented. You did not correct J.R.R. Tolkien. Critics would say, that's not the way you write a book. And J.R.R. Tolkien would basically say, watch me. And the results are undeniably unique. Now, you might not like The Lord of the Rings, you might find it boring. Gary Gygax famously found The Lord of the Rings extremely boring. And that's true. I got it from his son, myself. But I just admire that J.R.R. Tolkien managed to create this book in the way he envisioned it, and further correct it as years went on to perfect his vision of it. Interestingly, in terms of role-playing games, I played in the Middle-earth more than I ever ran it as a game master. My problem, I don't see the Lord of the Rings and I don't see Middle-earth as a role-playing game material. The reason for that is that I think that Middle-earth is so coherent as a world, so well detailed, that as a game master, to create unique stories or unique opportunities for adventure, I should say, for new characters in what already exists, you're basically left with the shaft. What's absolutely heroic and noteworthy has already been done by heroes that are already described by J.R.R. Tolkien. So either you play the little people in Tolkien's Middle-earth, which works. I've done it. Runs parties of hobbits, for instance, in Middle-earth, doing things that are not recorded by the history of the Third Age. Or you turn to the First Age, but then again, the narrative is so complex that it's very easy to step on the toes of J.R.R. Tolkien. Or you are relegated to side stories and side quests, I should say, that will complement what's already been written about the War of the Ring, the Rings of Power, the fall of this or that kingdom in the past, to say the Witch King or whatever. And even though this is feasible, this demands a level of knowledge to my satisfaction. A level of knowledge of the legendarium and a level of work that if you ask me to do it, I would prefer to pour that work and that love into my own creation, where I can get inspired by the work and the attention of J.R.R. Tolkien and essentially follow the tradition rather than mess with what is already done and done way better than I would ever do. So I just don't feel the compulsion to mess with Middle-earth, and I don't think of it as a game setting at all. as I mentioned, I rather see it as an inspiration for it can be an inspiration for a gaming setting as well. The way we conceived the Earth, the Dunsmere, with Arnie Gygax. I insisted a lot on being able to give a game setting that would have gradual levels of detail, where if you didn't want to care about what was going on in the wider world, or if you wanted to simply take the dungeon and throw it in whatever setting you wanted, both Arnie and I agreed on that. That was paramount. That you didn't have to care about most of the background story that was going on in the setting. Yet, I wanted the detail to be there if for those game masters who enjoy these things and can run games springing their imaginations of details of customs and behaviors. And so I took a page of Gary Gygax on this, in the sense that Gary Gygax worked often from the real world in the past to create settings, and in that sense, it wouldn't be wrong to imagine the Dunsmere as an alternate Greyhawk if it had evolved on a path similar to the legendary Earth or Aerth of Mythos, of Dangerous Journeys. That wouldn't be wrong, and that's where the opposition of the Frankians and the Britons happens, right? Which started as an opposition of me being French, Arnie being American, and then building on the whole medieval era on which the chainmail game was built, which gave us original Dungeons & Dragons. So that's what another video is. Anyway, I see the Lord of the Rings as an inspiration in terms of scope, detail, sheer work ethic, I guess we could say, from JRR Tolkien. It's undeniable that the Lord of the Rings now has a meaning to the general culture around us. I do think that people connect with the Lord of the Rings because there is a profound truth to it. As a novel, as a work of imagination, it translates some really deep truths about human nature. Particularly when it comes to the concept of death, of facing mortality, of facing the ineluctable grind of reality, the fading of the magic, the gradual evolution of man through not just the ages of the world, but the ages of his own body and mind, the growing up, the leaving the magic behind, trying to find it again, trying to go on, trying to go through the grind of life, trying to see hope until the bitter end, succeeding heroically at some things and failing miserably at others, having failures of mind and failures of faith, going for the easy thing, wanting to dominate others to prevent the loss of the world. The Lord of the Rings is about all these general things, which I think are very important in the mentality, at least of the West, if not the entire world. As human beings, I mean. I think that's an enduring value to the Lord of the Rings. And I think that the movies of Peter Jackson did justice to that. even though they might have done some changes that I don't approve of, like switching Arwen for Glorfindel. I see in the Peter Jackson interpretation a desire to represent the themes of Tolkien at least faithfully. And that is a start. And as such, it's hard to deny that the adaptation of the Lord of the Rings to the screen by Peter Jackson was an amazing success. Perhaps a one in a million success. I think the Hobbit trilogy on the screen proved that you can't do that repetitively ad nauseam. I think that the Lord of the Rings is a lightning in the bottle in that regard. Which brings us to Rings of Power, and I think that what Peter Jackson succeeded, Rings of Power failed at miserably. And I absolutely hate the fact that Amazon started immediately to accuse people like me, people who love the Lord of the Rings and what it represents, by telling us that we were bad people, that we were racist, misogynist, evil people. I have words for that. I won't say them right here. God knows I want to say them. You know the F word. But I want to say they try to dance on this, to market their series on this idea of diversity and all that, which from the start you could tell that the politics, the baiting was a forefront of the marketing before we saw anything of the series, that the actual story, the Legendarium of JRR Tolkien, was a second thought. That they were using the Lord of the Rings and Middle-earth as a vehicle to do their marketing and their, revision to make the Lord of the Rings fit the modern world and modern sensibilities and so on. The result is a disaster. It's a disaster. It's not just bad. It's morally objectionable. And I've commented that before, and I've seen people online laugh at me for saying that. And ask me, what do you mean morally objectionable? Well, it's morally objectionable because it messes with the themes I just explained about the Lord of the Rings. Some themes that I think, more than ever, some people, men especially, need to be in contact with, which is the idea that there's hope, that life is worth living and fighting for, that there are things that are marvelous in this world, that there is pain also, and pain makes us grow, that we have obstacles to face, and that we become better persons by facing them, by keeping the faith, the flame alive, by being servants of the secret fire. And that is a worthy endeavor. And that, attacking this, I think, is objectionable. It's evil even. And before people tell me, oh my god, you're calling people, well, I know I'm not calling people evil. I'm calling the endeavor, this disregard, this ignorance, this trampling of other people's passion and the work of JRR Tolkien. I'm calling that evil, the mundane evil of every day. You know, this apathy towards things that we all have, that we can all feel victim to. I think that's morally objectionable. To try to distort a work that can bring so much to so many, and instead making the vehicle of vapid ideas, corny cliches, and awful things, identity politics. And I have no words for this. I just have no words for this. So what I want to say is, I'm glad the fandom reacted the way it did. I'm glad that people drew a line in terms of collective, that we drew a line in the sand and said, no, you can mess with this franchise, but this one, no, we're not going to let that happen. We're going to say something. And I'm glad that there's been that moment, and there's a lesson for Hollywood and for you, Amazon, to learn here. I don't know if you will ever learn it, but I hope you do. Finally, I'm glad that there's a bright future for us all, and for the Lord of the Rings also. J.R.R. Tolkien dreamed of writing a mythology for England. It's not there yet. If it should see changes and, adaptations and new interpretations of our time, like, say, the Tabble Round or Robin Hood, it will happen in due time, but not for corporate profit, not for petty concerns, political concerns. It will happen over time with people who love the Legendarium and advance with it in the future. And I want to say to everyone out there who might be feeling down because there's so much bad media content out there, there's hope. There's really hope, and we should talk more, speak out, and then one day our voices will be heard, and things will change. They have begun to change, I think. We'll see. In any case, this is how I feel about the Lord of the Rings. I love this book. I love the world. It touches me deeply, and I want to share my passion with it. We'll catch up with another topic soon enough. I will leave you there and catch you later. Bye bye.